Hello, welcome or welcome back, hopefully, to gnawing on my yarn. But yes, my name is Noah and talk about all things knitting here. This is my very first knitting podcast, even though I don't think podcast is necessarily the most reflective word since there was a somewhat visual aspect to this. But yeah, so I'm going to go over all finished objects. I've never done one of these before, so I'm just showing stuff I finished kind of in the last month and a half or so. Not all of my whips. I have way too many to show in one video or would be here for about 4 hours. I am going to be showing the ones I've been most actively working on and then a little bit of recent acquisitions. So the, I guess, least recent finished object is the September Sky Shawl. Oops. September Sky Shawl. This was a kit that I got when I was up in Nevada from I think Yarn Refuge. They had it for their Sierra Nevada yarn crawl. It was their thing. So it had 2 skeins of the Plucky Knitters Luxe Merino Sport Weight. One of them, I think it's called Balloon Races, is this like really lovely multicolor tan yarn with all the little flecks of color. And I don't remember the name of the turquoise, but they had the option of having it with like this kind of this dark turquoise color or with purple or pink. But it was like always Balloon Races for the main color. It's done on 5mm needles, like simple cables, as you can see, to make the little hot air balloons. You do them up here, then you do them at the bottom, and then you have this like garter eyelet edging. I knit this up in about a week after I did the first tan section, put it down for like 3 weeks, and then just cranked out the rest of it in a week because it was a really good project actually for sitting in lectures. Just super repetitive and very simple cables. This has since become one of my girlfriend's favorite things to wear. She wears it when she's at her computer. And yeah, I am extraordinarily happy with how it turned out. The Plucky knitter has great yarn. It's just like, it's so stretchy and it's so soft, and the drape is amazing. And I have like nothing but good things to say about this. The pattern, I got a physical copy and a digital copy with purchase, and there was one small mistake in the pattern that has since been corrected. I got the email about the pattern correction I think like 2 or 3 days after I finished it, but nothing major. Really enjoyable knit, highly recommend. And then my next finished object is much simpler. It is a very, very simple brioche red scarf. This is knit with like, I think 2.5 balls or so of the Patons classic wool or classic. I don't remember the exact name of the yarn, but it is the like 100% wool yarn you can buy at Michael's. So I took a class at Avenue Yarns with Kira K about intro to brioche, and because I had tried to teach myself brioche like 3 separate times and I could not get the hang of it. But of course, seeing someone in person show me exactly what to do like on my work, it was like 15 minutes and I was just like, oh, this makes perfect sense. So this is the flat 1 color thing she had us start, and some people just watch. I really like how the scarf turned out. I was just knitting and knitting it, and I was gonna knit until I ran out of all my excess red because I had 1 full ball, 1 half ball, and 1 like quarter ball left over from other things. But then I realized I should probably look up how much does brioche grow when you block it. And so you can clearly see this is like not a like short scarf by any means. This grew about 2 feet with blocking. So I still have a half ball, maybe about a quarter ball or so. That just didn't end up getting used But no, I really like it. It's very squishy. It has a little bit of a rustic feel, so if you're really sensitive to kind of just the feeling of wool on your skin, it's probably not a great choice for you. But you know, especially if you're wearing a scarf like over a coat or something, it's like super easy. And the thing I will note about this is she had us do a selvage edge, where just we always, I think it was like always knit like every like end stitch, so it looked a little bit nicer. So as I mentioned in my spring knitting plans video, I am working on something lovingly called the blanket, Bjork plus blanket, blanket, for my very good friend. And I'm showing the 2 most recent squares I've completed because I completed them both in the past week. So this unblocked, but yeah, this is one of the lavender chairs mandala patterns from her crochet along blanket that she did a few years ago. I will insert the specific name of this one here or somewhere. And this is Bastards by Bjork. It is one of her remix albums. It's not a like studio album. I think it is, I think it's all remixes of one specific one, but I'm not sure. As I said previously, I am not so into Bjork. I like her music. I think she's really cool. I know a lot about her album covers and how she designs them now. But yes, this is mostly made out of cotton. The dark brown I know is like Ultra Pima, the orange, and I think the teal are both Queensland cotton. Some of these are like the Sidar Happy Cotton Decays. Most of this is worsted, but I also have held mohair for some parts to add some interest and texture. My favorite part about this is actually this blue round that I did, which is it's 4 strands of the Ito Sensei mohair held together. It's this like light blue, dark blue, and like super pale and like a super dark colors. And I'm really happy with how it came out. It's actually not my favorite square done to date. My favorite one will probably be shown at a later date. It is currently Volnicura for any Bjork fans out there. The other one that I finished is Debut. I decided I was doing them out of order to start, so I decided to go back and do them in order. Debut is her first album. It's the one that most casual, I guess just casual music listeners would probably know. She has her hands together like this, kind of covering her mouth. I'm really, really happy with this one. I think it just visually looks just gorgeous. And I am super excited to finish more of these so I can sew them together or create borders around them, connect them together that way, and then make it all into a nice blanket for my really good friend. Then my next finished object is it's another scarf, but this is the Espresso scarf by Katarina Linnhagen. It is a fingering weight brioche scarf. I used for this like absolutely gorgeous variegated yarn, and it's the color Garden Gnome from ApothecaryFiberCo, which has very sadly stopped dyeing. She had just the actual most gorgeous yarns I had ever laid dyes on. I had just one ball of it, so I tried to use up the entire ball, and I didn't want to follow the pattern exactly as is because it was written in the pattern basically to stop increasing at a certain point and then work straight brioche. I didn't want to work straight for a big portion of it. I increased basically up until this small section that's straight, but just enough to kind of cover the back of my neck. Then of course I was weighing my yarn, but my tension must have gotten looser as I got more comfortable with brioche, as this scarf I showed previously is the only other brioche thing I've actually done. So I ended up having to break out a mini skein, which this is a mini skein. It's from the Black Squirrel in Berkeley, and it's, I want to say it's Superwash, while the other one is just plain sock yarn, but it's, I cannot remember what brand it's from. They were just like the little minis that they had on hand. So I used most of a mini to just sort of you know, finish up the tail, because I miscalculated even with weighing. So I will definitely be a lot more careful with that in the future, and try and give myself a little bit more wiggle room to account for differences in gauge as I am working across a project, especially on something where I wasn't very good at it when I started, but I got significantly better as I was going, so my speed increased and then my gauge loosened. I totally see how I got into the situation. I just wish I had realized that while I was still increasing. But yeah, and the last finished object I want to share is the Alice in Wonder bag. This is a crocheted bag kit, I guess, from Wool and the Gang. This is made with 2 cones of their Jersey Be Good yarn, and I think it's crocheted with a 12mm hook, but I think if I did this again, I'm going to try to do it with a 10mm, because I have more of their Jersey Be Good, and because it's not like the holes are like a big problem, or that it's like the bag super needs a lining like a lot because of getting stretched out, because their Jersey Be Good yarn is actually made from t-shirt cutoffs, which I think is really cool, and how it's basically, because there's a lot of like end fabric that just doesn't get used in the clothing making process. So the idea that, you know, you can actually turn those fabric scraps into something new and like upcycle them is really cool. But so it's like a little bit of a thick, thin yarn. It's pretty subtle, but there's some spots that have a hole that's like a little bit bigger than the other, because those spots is where the t-shirt was just a little bit thinner. So that is a little bit noticeable. So I might size down and just make it a little bit denser, because I was carrying this to class and I kept losing pens out the bottom and knitting needles, which was a little bit embarrassing. But I still really like how the bag turned out. I like the method for the handle, because the handle is not going to stretch out in the ways that like usually crochet straps stretch out, or knit straps. It definitely stretches some, and I do put my laptop in this bag, but it's so far been holding up really well. I took it to class for like 2 weeks straight and I had no issues with it. Really happy. I'm going to be making another one with the 10mm hook, and I think I'm going to do this like multicolored one, and this like kind of like lemon yellow for that. But and with that, I want to move on to my whips. I have, like I said at the beginning, way too many to show in one video. A lot of my whips have gone abandoned due to one reason or another. Knitting and crocheting is it's my like favorite thing to do, but I also like lose motivation pretty quickly. So I'm trying this year to be better about that and actually finish more things, and limiting how many things I'm starting to also go back and finish things. But the first thing that I have to show is the Big Love Cardigan by Wool and the Gang. This is mostly done. It is all sewn together. The only thing I need to do is weave in all the ends and sew on the buttons that I got. I got these nice square buttons from Cottage Yarns in South San Francisco. And I also need to block it, which I might do before sewing on the buttons. But this is a pattern of theirs that was temporarily free as a part of their like 15-year anniversary. I knit this up in the Cascade 128 Superwash. I don't have any labels left, so I actually do not remember what color this is, but it is kind of like a very like medium blue purple. I normally don't see actually a lot of purple yarn. I don't know why that is, but I think a lot of other colors are just way more common. So I saw this and I just decided that like I needed to make it right now. So yeah, this actually knit up pretty quickly. I think most of the knitting took me about 3 weeks with working on other stuff. And I am very happy with how it is so far. I have tried it on with all the ends, and you know, it still doesn't look like a perfect cardigan, but I'm still really happy with it, and hopefully it'll be completely done by the time I am filming my next podcast. I will finally sit down and figure out how to sew on a button. I have never sewn on a button before, so I'm a little bit nervous, and I'm definitely going to go back and watch some videos about how to do it so they last the longest. And then my next whip, I actually have to show in pieces, but it is the Honeycomb Aran sweater from Yarnspirations. This is my one finished sleeve of it, and I am very, very close to being done with the body. So some things about this: it is twisted rib, technically half twisted rib for all of the little accents on it. It's worked in pieces and then it's seamed. It's, like I said, all over cables. It has like 3 separate cable charts to look at and refer to. I am knitting this in the Ray Cashmerino in the color Burlywood, which is color number 14. It's a Cashmerino Aran. The pattern is recommended to be knit on I think 4 and 5 millimeter needles. I am working up this sweater on 4.5 and 5.5 needles, mainly just because it is listed as a unisex pattern, but I'm actually knitting this for my dad, and I'm doing a large, but I didn't want it to be either like too warm or end up not being quite as wearable. Like, I'm from the Bay Area, so it's pretty like casual weather, but looking at this kind of sweaters that he has ones like a lot of them like this, but they're like cotton or something else. And the Cashmerino is 55% merino, 33% acrylic, and 12% cashmere. So I'm just don't want it to be super hot. Plus, I think this slightly more airy gauge, I'm really liking how it's knitting up, and also knitting up a little bit faster than if it was just on 5 millimeters, which definitely was a plus for me. Yeah, so I've been doing all of the cables on it without a cable needle. I actually learned how to do this from TikTok. I think the handle of the lady who had like the best explanation of it was like Mother Hen something. Changed my life and made everything so much easier to work on. This is something I've been wanting to do for my dad for a long time now. I got the yarn for this in 2021 over the summer, and I was like, 6 weeks is plenty of time to make it for him before his birthday. I started doing it actually like not from a pattern, but just kind of like freehanding. I didn't really like how it was turning out, and I gave up for a long time. This I want to say I started it last November. And it's been definitely like a pick it up and then put it down sort of thing. I did probably like, I did all of the twisted rib, and then I did probably about 3 or 4 inches up on the body, and then I was like, this is taking so long, because it's actually right when I learned how to knit continental style. I had been knitting English for, you know, all years before that, which was about 8 years or so. So then I ended up knitting the sleeve just because it was like a little bit easier. There's just less stitches across. And the sleeve, actually, I ended up working it up relatively quick comparatively, and then I just got totally sidetracked with other projects. And this isn't something I'm really trying to have done, like I'm trying to have done before July, which is when his birthday actually is. So I'm still working on the back panel and just chipping away at it. I will probably cast on the other sleeve before I end up, you know, working on the front panel, because the idea of doing all of this over again is a little just like a little bit nerve-wracking, because as much as I like cables, they do take quite a while. Doing, I think 6 rows of this, I think took me about like an hour, a little over an hour. But I've also speeded up a fair bit now because I have finally taken off my acrylics I had on for a few months, and those were slowing me down a fair bit as well. So maybe this will be done sooner than I am hoping. The next whip I want to talk about is something I mentioned in my spring plans, the Cherish Scarf by Nina Talbot. This is how much I have so far. I have done the first sort of edge, and this is the little keyhole pocket, so stick your fingers through. And I've done 2 repeats of the lace. The lace is really subtle, but it's sort of this little edge here with some yarn overs, SSKs. Nothing super complicated. Even if you have never done lace, I think it's totally doable as long as you know how to increase and decrease and yarn over. And it's only the edge. Everything else is worked up in garter. This is in, this is the yarn I got from the Knitting Tree during the SoCal Fiber Fest. It is, I want to say Port Wool Co.'s Merino DK in the color Under the Tree. Specifically made for them. This is all wound up so you can't see what it looked like in a beautiful, beautiful hank. But you can see as it's knitting up, it's kind of creating these clusters of pink that just really, they're just so gorgeous. I think it's just the most beautiful yarn that I have, dare I say, ever seen. And it's worked up on 5mm needles, but you do size down to 4.5 for the ribbed pocket. And yeah, I think the pattern could honestly be a little bit clearer. That's probably my biggest problem so far, was I had a hard time without any sort of schematic, I guess. They said, like, you repeat the lace chart X number of times for the small size and then X number of times for the bigger size, but the measurements are not given and the pictures of the model are not clearly labeled if she's wearing the large in both or is she wearing the small. So I'm kind of playing it by ear. I'm going to repeat the lace as much as I feel like to get the length that I'm going for, along with just making sure I don't end up losing yarn chicken like I did with my Espresso scarf. But other than that, once I kind of sat down and figured it out, I'm really enjoying how it's going so far. And yeah, that might be done probably pretty soon. It's a pretty simple knit. Then the next one I want to talk about is, I think it's just called the Check Vest. It's a free pattern from Yarnspirations, and it is from their sort of like Wednesday the TV show, not Wednesday the day of the week, roundup. And this was originally done in black and white. This is what I have so far. I have joined the shoulders and picked up and knit the collar, but I still need to sew the collar together. This is worsted weight, and it's knit on 4 and 4.5mm needles. I'm using the Plymouth Superwash yarn, which is the same as what I'm using for the Interlac and Key Scarf. I actually had got this yarn originally for one of Barocco's Talera patterns. I think it's the modal vest. I've been really into vests and just love to knit them. I have so many vest whips and future cast-ons planned. But for the modal vest, I got I think 2 or 3 balls of green, then 1 ball of blue. I ran out of the blue, and then when I went back to the store to get another ball of blue, they didn't have any, and apparently Plymouth is a little bit harder to get in contact with as opposed to some other companies. So they basically didn't tell me when they were going to get it back in stock at all. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll just leave it, because the only other places that I saw that had it online had like pretty high minimums for free shipping, and this is also right before the Bay Area yarn crawl happened. So I was like, I'm sure one of the stores has to have it. So I ended up getting another ball of blue from Fillory in San Jose, which saved me, and I was able to finish the back panel. And yeah, because I remember just working on it nonstop, and then I had just put it down because I couldn't find any more blue. But then once I got the blue, it like slowly finished the back, and just last night is when I did knit the collar. I need to sew the sides together and then knit the armholes and then, you know, weave in the ends and block. But then this is all done and hopefully you will see me wearing it next time. So, and on a similar note, I want to show my entrelac and key. This is the Tunisian crochet project from Tony of TL Yarn Crafts, and this is what I've got going so far. So the way entrelac works is basically one row is done this way. So like this one green square here was row 1. These 2 pink ones are row 2, and then like the 3 green is row 3, and on and on. My blue is still attached because I was adding in a row of blue after I think 7 rows of pink and green. I'm really enjoying working on this. The rows take quite a long time because I'm not an expert in Tunisian crochet by any means. I took one class on it, I think about a week ago now, and this is my very first Tunisian crochet project, but I will show the yarn a little bit closer. So this is called, I know this one's called Turquoise Glow, and then this is the green, which I think is just called Neon Green. Then I have my pink, which I think is called Hot Pink. So these are my 3 colors. Really happy with these choices. They're just like, they're 3 like super vibrant ones. I guess they're new colors. Really enjoy working with it. And one thing I have learned about working with Superwash is the fact that I don't like working with it in the round. Part of actually why I switched to the check vest as opposed to the modal vest was because the modal vest was worked in the round, and I find that working with Superwash in the round, basically you have so many like fibers and you're just always twisting it one way, and it either untwists or just twists like way too tight around itself. So working on it flat has been really nice though. It's very bouncy, very squishy, and hopefully will not grow like 7 times as large when I block it. But yeah, no, I'm really happy with how that's going. So, and relatedly, I have the modal vest recast on with completely different yarn. It's in such a state. I have finished the back, but I haven't rejoined for the front, so it looks a little bit funny. Ta-da, I guess. This is a pattern by Barocco it was for their Talara yarn, and it's these pretty subtle crosses that you can see that are done with like 1x1 cables. The yarn I'm using for this is Palace. It is a discontinued yarn I happened to find at one of my local stores, and I don't think this color has a name, but it is like the pink with like brown fleck color. This yarn is like a little bit thicker than Talara. Talara is like considered like a worsted weight, but it's also a like 100, it's a 100% llama chainette yarn, and this is, I want to say it's mostly alpaca, and then with a little bit of wool and obviously some nylon for support, but also a chainette, but it's more of a bulky weight. So what I actually ended up doing was basically modifying the pattern to a different number of stitches than any actual size given. So it's basically if you knit like an extra small in the pattern just by sizing up. So, and I think it's knit on like 4.5 and 5mm for the original pattern, and I'm currently doing this, I did the ribbing with 5.5 and I'm doing the actual body of it with 6mm. It's knitting up super fast. I just haven't rejoined since I've been a little bit busy recently, but I'm hoping to have this finished pretty soon, and I'm really excited to wear it out. The next pattern the next whip I wanted to talk about is a pattern that I mentioned in my spring knitting video. This is the Fern Pullover by Joan Ho. This is how much I have so far, which I know doesn't look like much, but I did the bottom ribbing and like tubular cast on everything, so that's like in the round, but then I split to do it flat instead of bottom up like I said previously, because I wanted to do multicolored cables. You can see that they are just started, and you can't really see a lot of like actual cableness so far because I've only done a few rows. But this is what I'm knitting up in the Ella Rae. I want to say it's the chunky alpaca, 70% acrylic, 30% alpaca, but shockingly soft, just ungodly soft. And I am knitting this other than, you know, knitting it flat instead of in the round. I am following it to pattern. It is knit on 5 and 6.5 millimeter needles, and it's kind of like all over cables. What I like about the pattern is I like how clear it is, and I love just how it's included in a book of other really wonderful patterns. I'm really excited to knit more things from Joan Ho, and I think that this pattern is going to be a slow going thing for me because of the fact, because of all the intarsia. It's just like I have all of the colors that are attached in a bag because there's 8 balls attached to this, and it's a little bit of a struggle because most knits that I do, I'm doing like in front of the TV. I'm doing them in a lecture setting, or just sort of like hanging out with people. There's not a lot of like time that I spend only knitting, and that's like I'm concentrating on knitting, but this is very much like a concentrating on knitting project. But I still feel like really confident about it. I think that if I was doing this with any lower weight than bulky weight, I would be having a really, really hard time because it would just take so long. But the actual like number of rows you need to do for the body is, it's less than I thought. I don't want to give the exact number, but it's definitely not like doing something with like a DK weight where it's just gonna be like 200 rows or something like that. But yeah, so not a ton of progress thus far. Maybe there will be more progress made on it next time, but yeah, that's my fern pullover so far. And then I think my last whip I want to talk about is, I think it's like my boxy cowl pullover, I think is what it's called. It's also a pattern from Yarnspirations, hence the very, very like generic naming. But this is the front panel. I have both sleeves done, and I have most of the back panel done. So I just need to do the collar and then like sew it all together. But it is a drop shoulder free pattern, and it's what I like about it is I like the yarn that they use for it a lot. It is it's one of the Karen cakes. I think it's called like the latte cakes, and this is in the color, I want to say raspberry. But what I like about this yarn, it is I think 50% acrylic, 50% polyester, which for that kind of a yarn blend, it's also really, really soft. It feels good on the skin. It doesn't feel like it's gonna be super hot. I like all of the fuzz on it. I like the fun color changes. The pattern originally had you do like pulling from 2 at a time, so your stripes are a little bit more even. Like, I forget the name of the specific technique, but it's like what you do when you have hand-dyed yarn, where you basically do 2 rows in one from one ball and then 2 rows from another, so you don't have any obvious like hard lines where the color changes. For me, I don't really care quite as much. I'm good with the color just sort of doing whatever it wants to do. One thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video, but what I'm wearing. I am wearing the Anytime Anywhere tank by Vicky Knits. This is a collab she did with Wool and the Gang a few years ago, and this is knit in ivory, and I'm not sure of the name of the blue. I don't think it's a color they carry anymore, but it is blue with like white tweed flecks in it. And I think I knit this, I think I knit it in a size 3, but I am not 100% sure because it's been quite a while since I knit it. And with that, I want to move on to acquisitions. Obviously, like I've been kind of mentioning, I went to the Bay Area Yarn Crawl. I visited all the stores and entered myself in their bingo, which was 21 stores plus with 2 extra stops, ending up at like 23. The actual stuff that I got, I'm not really including in this because a lot of it has just been mentioned in what I'm planning and is not really a new acquisition. But as a part of it, I actually won a raffle at Uncommon Threads in Los Altos. So I won their beach getaway set kit pack. It came with a few things besides just yarn. First thing is this little wooden tapestry needle. I think it's like the same wood as like the Knitter's Pride, like Dreams needles. I think maybe birchwood. This Everyday Humans Resting Beach Face SPF 30 sunscreen, which I think is really cute how it's like knitting on the beach versus just like knitting a beach item, because I had no idea what was going to be in this. Red Hawaiian Alea sea salt, which is, I would say, is the fanciest salt I have ever seen, but my mom is really into cooking, so I actually know a fair bit about fancy salts. But I think, yeah, I think this will be fun just to put on whatever I'm having and just be like, oh yes, red Hawaiian salt, how fancy. And then also a locking and a non-locking little stitch marker from Heidi Luna. So one of them's a little shell and a little pearl, which I think is just the absolute cutest thing in the world. Then the pattern it came with is the Soar Scarf by Katarina. You can see there. And then and this has instructions for a fingering and a sport weight version of the same scarf. Here is a better shot of those. I got 2 skeins of Sincere Sheep's coastal yarn. This is 50% Shankyo wool, 25% mulberry silk, and 25% Belgian linen. I have never seen a yarn combination like this before. I think it is so cool. But this is their sport weight. Each sport weight ball comes with 205 yards. And this is in the color Prayer to Artemis. So they are, so I have 2 of them right here. There's a little bit of difference between them that I can see. Like this one does not have quite as much pink as this one has. So, but they're still the same color. I looked at both labels. So I will actually be alternating skeins for that scarf, since that's like, you know, that's the whole pattern it came with. But yeah, made by hand in the Napa Valley, which I think is so cool. I love any yarn that's from the Bay Area, from California. You know, it's always really cool to support really local dyers, designers, spinners. One thing I saw on the Bay Area Yarn Crawl that I did not end up purchasing, but that I thought was really cute, was actually someone who spins yarn that includes part of their cat's fur, which some people might not be into that, but I think it's really, really funny. And honestly, considering how much my cat sheds, I could probably do something similar. But I just, yeah, stuff like that's like super specific and niche, I guess, is really fun. And yeah, that's the only acquisition that I have gotten super recently, other than I also did pick up like this ball of the pink Plymouth Superwash for the Interlocking Key very recently. But other than that, that's it. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. And I hope to have a podcast about 2 weeks from now and keep it at that schedule. But and if you want to share your support or interact in any way, I'd appreciate it a lot. Thank you.